Initially, it was more like just really hard to process what was going on. Like it was very hard to stay focused. So all plans were just thrown out of place. And um, I do a lot of events. I join a lot of pop-ups and was had a big Renegade Craft Fair. It was in April, and that was one of my biggest sales events. So that was cancelled. Boutiques were closing down. Boutiques were canceling orders. So it was just kind of like, okay, like what now? And also just the fact that emotionally was just really weird to kind of count the number of deaths that were increasing every single day. So that was all really odd. I've been just staying home with my boyfriend, and we haven't really gone out much. We started first by just making surgical masks for donations to healthcare workers. We made a bunch that we sent off to Swedish Medical Center. And then we started experimenting with designing sustainable reusable masks for just people in general. And we wanted something that was stylish and nice, but also super functional. So the main problem was like the gap between your nose bridge and your cheeks. And so we were like, designing our own metal strips and figuring out a way of how we can make a mask that was super airtight, comfortable, washable. So that pretty much has been what we have been up to since the March. And in April, we launched the first set of masks that we had, and we do it via a pay-as-you-wish system. So customers can pay whatever they find reasonable for the mask, and it's been going pretty well so far. In terms of the fashion business, I don't really know where that is going, but I kind of have an idea I have kind of a better idea of where I want to take the brand. Like I've been enjoying doing a lot of custom orders that I just sew it myself, and also with the mask, it's brought in a lot of new customers of a very mixed demographic, and it's yeah, at this point everything is kind of very flexible, and just I'm not doing any factory production anymore. I put a stop on all new designs and new production until I can figure out what to do with the brand. And I'm just basically right now working on custom orders and making masks.
I did want to encourage you. It looks like masks are going to be very useful for about the next month. And
Yep.
especially with the declaration that Mayor Durkin made for the 18th. And but after that, people are going to be looking to re-engage with their lives, and they're going to look at how they spend their money and what they spend their money on. And capsule collections, capsule wardrobes, things that fit in their lifestyle, things that have functionality, things that are going to be very durable, are going to be more valuable, especially with a brand story and in marketing materials, than sustainability. It sounds bonkers to put it that way, but from the perspective of how fashion solves the consumer's problem, people are really looking for things that help them re-engage with their life. And the great opportunity we have with Seattle Fashion Collective is figuring out, how do we do this sustainably, and how do we do this ethically, and how do we not burden ourselves and put ourselves in a similar position again, where we don't have the abundance, and where we find ourselves in lack, and where the systems of waste just keep piling up, and they create even worse problems down the road. So I'm very curious if you've had any time to maybe think about these things. And I know the sustainability and where you source your textiles is very, very important to you.
I think it's actually even more important now to be sustainable. If anything, I don't think that people are looking to buy fashion in general, or I mean, as you said, they're looking for things that are useful and functional and that make sense in their lives. But for me, like the way I'm taking it for the how I'm gonna move the brand forward is to just have like all my basic essentials, the black dresses, the pieces that have always sold well, and then to do a lot of really special, sustainable pieces made out of recycled fabrics. So my plan is to actually not buy any more fabrics at all, and just use whatever I have in the studio, and just use whatever leftover materials I have, defective pieces, and piece something really special together. So I think people are looking to get either super functional basics or super special things that for them is meaningful, and for them they see it as a way to support small businesses. I think that anything in between is just not really gonna work.
In the Vogue global conversations, one of the biggest things that kept coming up again and again is creativity, how creativity helps us solve problems, how it helps us to re-engage with ourselves, how we can self-care and self-manage. It's an essential, vital element to our daily lives. So I did just want to check in and see, how have you been maintaining your sense of creativity and well-being?
I mean, I think the creative part will always be there. um, and I think that this is actually the time when people can really start to be creative about anything, really, because there is no stress to produce because there is no demand for goods anyway. So there is no real competition or real stress to keep doing the same fashion production things that we've always been doing. So, it's kind of like just make something that really makes sense to you. I think making the mask was great because it's been just me self-producing and working a lot with my hands, which has been super calming and helpful. Like just sewing nonstop. I think this is the most amount of sewing I've done consistently for a very, very long time. So that's been nice. And then I've been doing a lot of drawing. I've been painting. I've been just doing a lot of random things, cooking, baking. Like, I mean, this is pretty much the time when anything goes. So, there is no, I don't feel like I'm facing a creative block or anything. I feel pretty free, actually.
That's very, very good news. That's very, very good news. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question, where I was curious. In times like these, it's easy to look at some of the downsides, but I'm very curious. What are you most grateful for? And it sounds like you have a very good list there.
I'm grateful to be alive, to be healthy, first of all, to not even have to be stressed about I mean, things are really stressful now outside, so I'm just happy that we're all good here. My family's fine. That's great. I'm grateful for my customers. I'm grateful that I've had some really nice customers who've been reaching out, just checking in to say hi. Yeah, and I'm also happy that I'm in Seattle in this event, like because it's been pretty well, things have been pretty good here. I think most people are pretty civilized. People are they understand what's going on. Like most people are following the rules. So yeah.
Looking ahead, what would an ideal situation look like as the markets begin to open and as pop-ups maybe start to happen? How do we sort of move forward as an independent fashion community together in a best case scenario?
I think we need to make better use of virtual platforms. So for example, Renegade Craft Fair, which is a huge fair that I participate in every year. They're doing virtual pop-ups for makers instead of the actual physical pop-up that they normally do. So they get makers to spend maybe about an hour sharing with customers their process, what they're doing, show them their studio. And I think that's been a pretty effective thing to do. And I see a lot of virtual trunk shows happening as well. I think it's a time for independent designers and brand owners to really put their face forward and to really kind of connect and talk directly to their customers instead of relying on models and very stylized photo shoots and campaigns. I think it's people want something a little more real and a little bit more accessible, something that they can understand. So I see, you know, like just even for larger brands, the designers are putting themselves to the forefront of the brand. And I think that's going to be important. I think that it's important to do more like text messaging is getting more popular. So I have like customers who are just directly WhatsApping me or texting me. Emailing is getting more popular, like things that we thought were just really old school are becoming more important. And yeah, I think moving forward, that's kind of how it's going to be. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to wholesaling or doing trade shows anymore. I don't really think that that's going to be. I'm not sure where that market is going in this situation. It's pretty much like when the pandemic started. You can see that the whole traditional fashion trade show system just totally broke down because wholesalers didn't want to follow through with their orders, so brands could no longer fulfill orders. Brands have to cancel orders, so factories had to close because they can't fulfill the orders either, and they're closed as well, factories. So it's pretty much that whole stream of supply demand chain just doesn't even work anymore. And I think it just emphasizes how important it is to just work directly, how important it is to work directly with your customers, just straight up, instead of having a middle person do the retailing. And so yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do yet, but I most likely will not be doing any factory production for a while, and I will be doing more self-production. I will be just working one-on-one with my own customers.
Very cool. Very cool. And the move to direct to consumer has been a very big, it's been a very big push. We've seen nationwide as well. And the CFDA has been covering stories. WWD has been covering stories of designers who are going directly to consumer and having quite a bit of success that way. And the last thing I did want to ask you before we hang up here is if you had a message maybe that you can give to other makers, other creators, or even just to consumers, if there's like one sort of really big important thing that you would want to communicate to a large audience and to sort of get your point across, what would it be?
About the business itself, or what?
It could be about business. It could be about anything really. But if there were maybe another way of looking at it is if you were going to die tomorrow, this is how I think. Not to be morose, but you know, if I knew that tomorrow was the last day I had an opportunity to say anything to anyone, you know, who would I reach out to and what would I say? I think about that often.
I would say stay healthy, exercise, stay creative, keep moving even though you're staying in.